This leads us to our second part of the talk, which is common New Age practices. And I want to start talking tonight about astrology. Because God can, if He chooses, reveal our future to us. But if He should not choose to do so, we should not take it upon ourselves to divine or to figure out the future, or our lot in life, or our relationship status, etc. And this includes everything from astrology, horoscopes, tarot cards, seances, palm readers, fortune telling, everything, the whole lot. This not only is idolatry, it breaks commandment number 1. But not only does it break commandment number 1, it breaks God's heart. Because God created us. He loves us. He wants to provide for us and give us everything. And most of all, He wants us to trust Him. He's in charge of our life, and He will provide for us and give us everything we need if we trust Him, if we stay faithful to Him. So that's what commandment number 1 is about, trusting God and putting Him first. Now I want to talk about horoscopes, because they're pretty popular in this country. And many people confuse astrology with astronomy. Astronomy is the scientifically based, empirically factual science. This is true. It's a good thing. Astrology is not. It has absolutely no scientific basis whatsoever. In fact, it goes back thousands of years to ancient Babylonian times and is based off gods and goddesses and planets, etc. Father Mitch Pacwa, who is an expert on the New Age movement and a former practitioner himself, he says that astrology was founded off the original known 5 planets at the time. And he asks, what happens when more planets were thrown into the mix? What happens when we discovered new planets? How did they fare? What did they do for us? And he says, nothing. Nothing changed when we found more planets. So that's a problem, first of all. Second of all, he says that the degrees have changed over the last, 2,000 years. And the degrees that astrology say and astronomy say are actually different, meaning that what we think our sign is not actually our sign. And in fact, you guys probably heard on the news recently that this was confirmed by an astronomer who came out and actually said this. And I quote, he says, since the Babylonian zodiac periods were established a millennia ago, the moon's gravitational pull has made the earth, quote, wobble around its axis in a process called precession. That has created a 1-month bump in the stars' alignment, meaning that when astrologers say that the sun is in Pisces, it's really not in Pisces. So everything is off by about 30 days. So and for all the people who have been thinking that they're this one particular sign, they're actually not. And they've actually been putting stock in something that's not even true in the first place. But we know that astrology is not true. Tarot cards are generally not true. Like, there are a few people with a gift of clairvoyancy or, audiovoyance or those type of things. But we know that these gifts are not from God. And if they're not from God, we know where they're from and we should stay far away. Secondly, we know that astrology and tarot cards, they're all a big money-making gimmick. They're not true. And people are putting stock in something that's not true. Even if we put our stock in, horoscopes even part of the time, even some of the time, even if we take little bits and pieces here or there and try to apply it to our life, well, then we're putting our trust in something that is not God. And we need to stop. Because even if we take it seriously, we need to realize that it's all a hoax. They say that astrologers can't even pick out their own readings among a pile full of other readings. And that's telling. If they can't even pick out their own and show what applies to them, how are they going to pick out yours and say what really applies to you? Secondly, studies have found that if you send a horoscope to 10 different astrologers, it'll be interpreted 10 different ways. Third, other studies have found that out of 3,000 horoscope predictions, only about 10% of them prove true. And people pay money for this. Lastly, studies have found that people generally take from these readings and read into these readings what they want, what applies to them. This was demonstrated by a French researcher who offered a free horoscope reading in the newspaper. 150 people took this reading. 94% of the people said it applied to them. They said, yeah, I think this applies to me. I can see myself in this reading. And about 90% of their friends and family said, yeah, I could see that applies to them. What the researcher did not tell them is that he sent everybody the exact same horoscope reading. Secondly, he also did not tell them that it was the reading of Dr. Marcel, one of the most notorious mass murderers in all of French history. And yet everyone could see themselves in that reading. The Bible states over and over and over again that all of astrology and occultism and divination is not of God, and it condemns it. Listen to what Deuteronomy 18 says. It says, "There shall not be found among you anyone who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer," which is an astrologer, a fortune teller, or someone who practices clairvoyance, "or anyone who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or one who contacts spirits," I would say including spirit guides, which we're going to get to in a minute, "or anyone who conjures up the dead. For all of these things are an abomination to the Lord." Also, the Catechism of the Catholic Church also officially condemns all of these practices. In paragraph 2116, it condemns all forms of divination, talking to or conjuring up spirits, talking to the dead, horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, clairvoyance, mediums, and the whole lot. They're not from God, and we should not put our stock in them. In fact, we should stay as far away as possible. Padre Pio says that the devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain, and he cannot strike us unless we put ourselves in his striking distance. Now, this is important because when we get into astrology and seances and tarot cards and occult aspects, well, then we're putting ourselves in the striking distance of the devil. And Father Gabriel Amorth, the chief exorcist of Rome, and almost any other exorcist you talk to says that these things can lead to demonic influence in our lives. So we should stay away.